Hey everybody, how you doing today? We are the real estate ladies of North Atlanta, Susan Jennings, Mary Ellen Vanaken, and today we're going to talk about a couple things. So we're going to talk about 10 reasons why a real estate transaction can terminate prior to closing, which is a great topic. We're going to talk about one of our great neighborhood that we love in Alpharetta. We're going to talk about what we love about North Atlanta, and then we're going to touch on a design tip of the day, which we always think everybody wants something like that. So remember, we always have great information on our website. Follow us on Instagram. Mary Ellen Vanaken team, really easy to find. We have great information always about what's going on in the North Atlanta area. So today we're going to start to talk about our neighborhood highlight, which is Oakside at Hami, and that's in Alpharetta, Georgia. And what's very interesting about this subdivision, there's 64 homes in them. Most of them have about an acre, like a little less than an acre lot. So they're all on septic tanks, which people do kind of freak out about, which I don't know why, but it's just it's like anything else. If you maintain it, it's fine. Plus you have a little bit more space between you and your neighbors. It has a nice little pool area. It has a nice tennis court and a playground area. And since it's a really kind of small neighborhood with 64 homes, it's very desirable. People usually don't move out of the neighborhood. So it's kind of a desirable neighborhood because it's very hard to find with mature trees. A lot of the lots have mature trees. And it's been since about 2002, the houses have been there. So they've been there for about 20 plus years. Most of them have about 32 to 3,600, maybe 4,000 square feet plus a basement, terrace level, whatever you want to call it. But that's just the first two levels. We don't have there aren't any really ranches in this neighborhood. It's more of very traditional type homes, 2 stories. There are master on main 3-car garages, and price point is in like the mid 7s. At this moment right now. So it's really a great neighborhood. And the one thing about it that people don't realize is it has an Alpharetta address, but it's actually in Forsyth County. So the reason why it's in Forsyth County, you save money on taxes. So it's not as expensive as Fulton. But honestly, if you get out of the neighborhood, you throw a rock, you're in Fulton County. So a lot of people have to understand that in Alpharetta, we actually have 3 counties. We have Fulton, Cherokee, and Forsyth. So this is right over the border there in Alpharetta. So it's a great neighborhood. The schools are great in the area. Denmark High School, which is a new high school, which everyone really do like because it's new. It's only 2 or 3 years old. So a lot of people like that neighborhood, and they like that they pay less money in taxes. So, and then if you're over 62, you do get a discount of the school taxes in Forsyth County. So that's another reason why people will move to Forsyth County. So one of the great neighborhoods that we love in North Atlanta and Alpharetta is Oakside at Hami, and it's off Hami Road, off Highway 9, off McFarland on 400, if that gives you some kind of guidance on that.
And there's some great golf courses close to there too, Mary Ellen.
Oh my goodness, within the area, there's so many golf courses. So if you like golf, tennis, swim, you're just going to love the area. And you're like 15 minutes to downtown Alpharetta. You're 15 minutes to Cummings. So you're like kind of in the middle there between all the different areas. It's on the west side of 400. So that's just a great area. So now we're going to segment into our 10 reasons why real estate transactions can terminate prior to a closing. So take it away. What are we going to talk about?
Okay. Well, the first of the 10 items we're going to talk about are financing issues. So if a buyer fails to secure their mortgage or their other financing that's necessary to complete the purchase, this can cause it to terminate. This can, someone can have a financing issue due to credit issues or changes in employment or just discrepancies in income. If they falsified something on their application, that can cause an issue with financing and having the bank approve the mortgage that's needed.
Yeah, let me just touch on that too. So, what's really important about our clients and financing is that we, before they even get in a car to go look at houses, we have them qualified through a mortgage lender and pretty much through underwriting so that there aren't a lot of red flags. Now, there's going to be some unfortunate situations of life things that happen if someone loses their job or something happens. So I think it's really important to do that work up front, to know what your mortgage payment's going to be, how much you can afford before you even start shopping for homes. And one big thing about that is a lot of people are like, well, I'm qualified. I just want to look at this house. And that's just not the way as professionals we should do our business.
Right.
We want people to know and have a consultation, be qualified. And it doesn't take very long to get that information. So if you're thinking about buying a house, you know that you're going to have to gather all that information and send it to a lender because they're lending you that money for that house, So it's really important you're on top of that. So anyway, just wanted to put my little tidbits on the financing. Number one. Now, what's number two?
Number two is home inspection problems.
Oh, that's good.
So during due diligence, and due diligence can last anywhere from 3 days to 10 days, basically. If the home inspection on the property reveals significant issues such as structural damage, mold, pest infestations, a buyer during due diligence has every right to back out of the contract and get their earnest money back, especially if the seller is unwilling or unable to make some of these repairs.
Yeah. So what's important about that is when you do show a house, you get a seller's disclosure and most of the time a community association exhibit. So you're going to have that information up front. During your due diligence period in Georgia, you can do any kind of inspections you want to. The seller must give you access to the house to do your inspections. So it is important for sellers to have a pre-inspection so then they know if there's many issues. So between the seller's disclosure and having that home inspection, which is a must. I don't care if it's a new construction, an old house, whatever, sold as is, you still should have an inspection because it will give you a way to get out if you want to get out. You can get out other ways, but it's important to know. And a lot of times people don't know the issues of their house, right?
Right.
So I think it's important to just have that home inspection. So that can also terminate, a property here in Georgia is that inspection.
So number three is appraisal discrepancies.
Ooh.
So that means that you're under contract for one price and perhaps the appraisal comes in below that price. Now, the appraiser is selected by the mortgage lender. If there's no mortgage lender involved, such as the buyer is paying cash, then the buyer can select the appraiser for the property. But if the buyer's agent cannot come to terms with the seller's agent, or the buyers and the sellers can't come to terms and renegotiate the price to cover the difference, a transaction can fall through.
Yeah. And what's really important about that is that you need to, if that is something that you're concerned about, you need to have an appraisal contingency in your contract. That's why you need professionals to guide you in the right direction if that's really important. So, because you could be in trouble if the house, we've seen houses not appraised $50,000, more than that. And you have to be able to cover that if you want to move forward. So it's either you and the seller agree upon terms and lower it to that price. Maybe you split the difference, or maybe you just take it on. So it's another negotiation in our contracts. So it's another way that you can get out of a contract. We don't suggest you do, we suggest to work it out. But there's some circumstances where it's just not going to work financially for you. So you can terminate and receive your earnest money back.
Mm-hmm. So the fourth item we're going to talk about are title issues. Problems with the property title, such as liens, unpaid taxes, dispute over ownership, or if somebody has, one of the owners has recently died and the home didn't go through probate yet, these can all be items that can halt a transaction if they cannot be resolved before closing.
Oh, we got a great story to that one, Sue, don't we?
We do.
Currently we have someone under contract, and the sellers, didn't go through probate, and they're having to hire an attorney to go through probate. The seller thought that it was okay what they were doing, and it's a process, and sometimes it can take up to like 4 months or 5 months to probate an estate. So sometimes you're going to have to terminate because your timing is just, you can't wait. Because a lot of times you come into town and you're like, I got to move, I got to be in for school, or I have to be in this.
Right.
So that's just another way. So that is a way that termination can happen because of those situations.
The fifth way something can terminate is buyer's remorse. Sometimes buyers experience second thoughts about the purchase. This could be due to personal circumstances, finding a better property that they like, or simply a change of heart. A little cold feet on the financing maybe can also create buyer's remorse. So, Mary Ellen, when can a buyer back out of a contract?
A buyer can back out of a contract during the due diligence period for any specific reason. Now, I have a good story. I was representing a seller, and the buyer's agent, they did their home inspection and everything else. It came back fine and great, and they decided they were terminating. And I was like, why are they terminating? They said, well, when they got in the house, they didn't feel that their furniture fit the way they wanted to, so they actually terminated the property. So for any reason, you can, during due diligence, for any reason, the sky is blue, the sky is purple, the sky is red, whatever you want to do. It's so interesting. You can terminate during that time period. Now, we don't strongly suggest it. I mean, that's not something that we do every day. This doesn't happen maybe once every 20 years or something like that. It doesn't happen very often, but we have stories of reasons why people just decide they don't want to buy a house, cold feet. They just don't want to move on.
Right. Number 6 today is contract contingencies. And this means that real estate contracts often do have contingencies. Sometimes they don't. But these contingencies need to be satisfied in order for a deal to proceed. Common contingencies include the financing contingency, home inspections, the sale of the buyer's current home, or failure to meet any of these contingencies in the contract can create a termination of a transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. If the buyer has contingencies that they have to fulfill, or the seller, whatever has to be done, you have to take care of that. So yeah, right. So sometimes you have people that are stressed out and they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. So, and they're willing to lose that money, or they're willing to whatever, go to court over it, or whatever. We don't really get involved in that, but we don't have many terrible situations like that, but it does happen a lot. So you have to make sure you're protected on the buy side as well as the sell side with contingencies and with your contract.
Right. We do have number 7 is a very rare issue that I've experienced it. It does happen, but not very often. And number 7 is seller's issues. So the seller might encounter problems with the inability to find a new home, or changes in their personal situation, or even deciding to take the property off the market for personal reasons. These are a little bit stickier in terms of, being able to have the seller back out of a transaction, but sometimes, the buyer is willing to work with the seller and graciously backs out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a mercy at the sellers cannot really get out of contracts, and then you have to get attorneys involved. And we don't really get involved in too many of those type of situations. But, sometimes it's just to make it a win-win for everybody else and just kind of move on. If the seller, something happens, just a life event that they do not want to sell anymore, then you can talk to the buyer's agent and say, hey, we'll give you this, we'll give you your earnest money plus this, this, and this of your cost and your time or whatever, and try to resolve it that way. Otherwise, we tend to send the rest of that information to attorneys because we try to, there's only so much we can do as realtors.
Right. Number 8 on our list today is also extremely rare, but legal issues, such as legal problems with disputes over property lines, zoning laws, or legal claims against the property, such as, any type of lien, in other words, that can prevent a property from closing. I had one situation last year where we had an issue with the city had an issue with actually the neighbor's property, but it affected a property that I had a buyer buying, and that delayed a closing. It didn't terminate the transaction, but it did impact the buyers to the point where it needed to be resolved with the city on the previous owner and the neighbor prior to that home being able to close. Very, very unusual circumstance.
Well, always get a survey. That's one thing I want to tell you. Always get a survey, because a lot of times people have their fences on your yard and all that kind of stuff, and maybe you can buy a little piece easement, this and that. So my suggestion is always, always, always have a survey of your house.
And that was our number 9 today, Mary Ellen.
Oh, okay, here we go, number 9.
Yes, because they can cause a transaction to terminate. And people say, oh, I don't need a survey. This property's been here forever. Well, no. I mean, I've seen it where somebody built a new deck and the deck actually crossed the property line, and that all had to be resolved before we could close on the property.
Yeah, so people don't realize that those are big issues, because what happens, we're an attorney state. So Georgia's an attorney state. There might be people listening from other states. And basically, they're the ones that do the title work and all that kind of stuff. So they're the ones finding all that information out. And they will not do a transaction unless everything is clear.
Right. So number 10, and our final item that we're going to talk about today, are market conditions. And we don't see this happen very often either, but there can be significant changes in the real estate market, such as a sudden drop in property values or economic downturns. These might lead buyers or sellers to reconsider a transaction.
Yeah, I mean, interest rates are nothing compared to certain things that happen, tragic events, 9/11 or something like that, where people just, they stand still.
Right.
And also, like I can say, election years, people are kind of not making decisions until they know who's in office. We don't talk politics, we don't get involved, but we can see different trends on that. But Castro, what if the house is in a hurricane area and it gets destroyed by a hurricane? There's just all kinds of circumstances that can happen that you might have to terminate a contract.
Right. So all of these things that we talked about are important reasons to think about, especially during due diligence, and clear communication between all parties involved are very, very important, because we want to minimize the risk of a transaction falling apart prior to closing. Our job as realtors is to get the property to the closing table as smoothly as possible, and have a pleasant experience for everybody, because it can be very stressful otherwise.
Yeah, it definitely can be stressful. And then just a little tidbit, if you're doing like a VA loan, a veterans loan, there are different rules when it comes to contingencies and stuff. So you really need someone who's an expert that knows those different rules and those different kinds of circumstances when it comes to a certain type of loan. So really use a professional. I know people think that they can do this on their own and just use an attorney or whatever. Please use someone who has experience, does this every day, and gives you the right advice to move forward.
Right. So I always say to my buyers and sellers that Mary Ellen and I and other realtors in our community, they do this every day. They close transactions a couple times a month. Whereas you as the homeowner might only do this a couple times in your lifetime.
Right.
So that's important to listen to those of us that do this all the time.
Right. And you want someone who's experienced and someone who has that knowledge. And what I found out with real estate is not everything is clear cut. Every deal is different. Every contract is different. There's always some kind of little tidbit, and we're always learning too. So I think it's important to, if we don't know the answer, we seek the knowledge. So I think we've seen a lot in our, 20 plus years in real estate, seen a lot of things, but sometimes there's new things that happen and you're like, how do I deal with that? So that's why we always have a great broker, and we have great colleagues that that maybe have been through a situation that can help us, guide us in the right way. So I think it's important to have the right professionals around as well.
Yeah, it's incredible how different each transaction can be. First of all, you're dealing with different personalities of the buyer, the seller, even the agent on the other side of the transaction. That can all impact, how smoothly a transaction goes. But even in the smoothest of transactions, some of the quirkiest things can happen. Just a real quick side note. I sold a property for cash a couple years ago. I was the listing agent. The buyer was the cash, purchaser. The buyer, because they were paying cash, didn't have a mortgage company over their shoulder. And so they failed to get their homeowners insurance prior to closing. And within days of closing on the property, the home burned to the ground. And, it doesn't matter whether you're a cash buyer, whether you have a mortgage company, you really always need to make sure you have that homeowner's insurance in place prior to closing.
That's an unfortunate situation. Right. So always make sure that you always have somebody overlooking and helping you, and always ask questions. If you don't know the answers, we can definitely help you with that. All right. Well, that was great about talking about 10 reasons why real estate transactions can terminate during closing. We don't want that situation to happen very often. It does happen. And these are kind of some of the ideas of what can happen. So now we're going to talk about what we love about North Atlanta. And today, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the Big Creek Greenway, right?
The Big Creek Greenway is amazing. It's about 9 miles long. It meanders along the Big Creek, which parallels basically North Point Parkway from Windward Parkway at Marconi Drive to the north, as well as down to Mansell Road on the south end. There's so much wildlife in our area. So you're on a concrete path through this whole area, but you'll see a lot of wildlife, such as blue heron, you'll see deer, you'll see ducks, you'll see Canadian geese. And it's just a beautiful path to be on. It's 12 feet wide. You can walk, you can push a stroller, you can rollerblade if you want, you can ride your bicycle, you can run on the path if that's what you'd like to do. And it offers an ideal setting for all of these things. The Greenway can be accessed at various points, such as at the Alpharetta YMCA. There's a nice parking lot there for you to park in and walk into the path that way. That's right off of Haynesbridge Road. Along North Point Parkway, you can get in, you can park at the North Point Mall, and you can get in between Mansell or Haynesbridge Road and those areas. It's the Greenway sign right in that area, by the way, is right across from like the Haverty's furniture store that's there. Kimball Bridge Road at Rock Mill Park is another great place to enter the Big Creek Greenway. And one of my favorites is to go in at Marconi Drive at Windward Parkway. So enjoy.
What I really like about it too is you can run, you can bike, you can just go have a walk with your friends, stroller, rollerblade. That's so 80s, isn't it? 80s is when everyone's rollerblading. I don't know. But you can rollerblade. I guess you can, do those type of things. But what I really like about it too, it has really good shade too. And, in the heat of the summer, spring, fall, it can get very hot here. So it's kind of nice that you have it's not hot.
It's very shaded.
Very shaded, which is great. Yes. And always, when you're going on a greenway, always look around where you're at and who you're with and stuff. And I always suggest not going by yourself. Right. Bring a friend, go talk to a friend, go for a walk. And
Right.
it's a great way to get exercise. So this is one of the great places that we love about North Atlanta. And
Mhm.
like, again, we do have a lot of this stuff on our Instagram, on our Facebook. So just seek out and kind of look at that. We also have a weekly newsletter about Alpharetta and Milton. And that's really good too, if you want to know of the activities going on there. All right. So the next segment we're going to talk about is the design of the day. So it could be anything. I don't know. Today, what are we going to talk? I mean, anything about design or anything having to do with the house, because people love to hear about design.
Right. So the tip that I have for today is actually relatively inexpensive, but can really make a difference in whether a home looks dated or whether it looks up to date. And that is, take a look at your cabinet and your door hardware. The shiny brass hardware that was put on the houses in the 90s is not in style any longer. And it is so easy to make a list of how many doors you have, what types of doors you have, how many hinges you need, and go to Home Depot, go to Lowe's, or go online and order.
Amazon. You can go on Amazon.
Yes, order new hinges and new door hardware. Also, look into your kitchen cabinets, look at your laundry room cabinets, look at your bathroom cabinets. What do those knobs look like? Do they look like the 90s? Do they look like the 80s? Well, bring your home up to the current time period very inexpensively. Knobs just unscrew, they screw back on. They're really, really easy to change. So, what type of cabinet knobs and handles are in style right now, Mary Ellen?
Oh, well, we're kind of going, we're going back to the, everyone brass is out, right? But, they love that new, what is that? Nickel. They like, we're seeing that rose gold that's coming in certain things in the kitchen. Just even a regular, nickel type, it depends on the style of your house too, right?
Right.
So look what's trending now and kind of look at what your house is and then just kind of pick from some ideas.
So I think the top finishes are probably matte black or oil rub bronze finishes. They offer a sleek and modern deep tone that's a popular choice, contrasts nicely with white trim. It's a very sophisticated look. If you want to do the gold tones, do it in a brushed finish. Those satin finishes offer a touch of luxury and warmth, and they complement a wide variety of cabinet colors as well. The third choice that I would recommend would be maybe mixed metals. And sometimes you might want to mix in some crystal with this. There's some really cool updated shapes in crystal that are with different metal finishes like the black or the brushed gold. And they're kind of trendy. They add a unique flair to your home, really elevate it and give an eclectic, elegant touch. And then the last one I want to mention is just minimalist designs. People really prefer clean lines, simple lines, understated design, and all of that's in demand, and it's reflecting the current contemporary aesthetic in our homes.
And I bet you now that you've listened to this, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it on HGTV. Every house you look at, you're going to go, let me look at the knobs. Let me look at the knobs and see what I want to do. So honestly, you can do it quickly. You can do it trending. You can look at magazines. You can look online. You can look on you can get anything online. So basically just kind of figure out what your style is, what goes with your house. You want to go with the theme of your house too, as well. And just look at the new stuff. If you're redoing your kitchen, like to 2024, what's going on here, you might be going in a different direction. If you're redoing your floors, like matching your floors with your cabinets and stuff like that. So it's kind of a fun project to do too.
Right. And don't be afraid to mix metal finishes within a room. Just because your chandelier is one color of metal doesn't mean that your knobs can't be a different color. People are often think it all has to match, and it really doesn't.
Just be you, do what you like to do. So anything else to add to that, Sue? I think
we've covered it.
All right, perfect. So thanks everyone for listening to us, the Real Estate Ladies of North Atlanta, covering about Alpharetta neighborhood today, about 10 ways how a contract can go not to closing. We talked about what we love about North Atlanta, which is the Big Creek Greenway. And we did a designer tip from Sue, which is about painting your knobs. So anyway, thank you so much. You can follow us on Instagram, online. We're around all the time. And thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.